who would have thought we get this type of matchup to open things up? Number 9 ranked Shane Burgos facing off against number 13th ranked Edson Barboza, man. Where do we start from here, AJ, man? We know one thing for certain here. I don't think we're going to see now one takedown. Now, Edson Barboza has talked about, yeah, man, I'm ready everywhere for a war. Feet, ground, wherever, but I really do not see that happening. I see this being an incredible kickboxing match, an incredible boxing match, all types of striking fiascos going on, but nonetheless, AJ, who stands out to you more? Both of these dudes are volume guys, both of these dudes are pace guys, both of these dudes have power, but who stands out to you just when you saw, Burgos versus Barboza? Okay, give me your thoughts.
Well, I agree with you 100%, Derek. And the first note I wrote down is we're going to see kicks on kicks on kicks, man. It's going to be a lot of fun, especially if you like kicks boxing. But who stood out to me a little more? But honestly, it was kind of Shane Burgos. This is going to sound crazy, but Shane Burgos in my head stood out a little more just of his recent stuff. He had a great fight against Marwan Amirkhani. He had the split decision win against Cub Swanson. That one was, here or there, but he's been fighting dudes. He's been fighting top of the heap talent for a long, long time, as well as, Edson Barboza. And Edson Barboza to me, for a long time has been that gatekeeper position, not really advancing, kind of a 50-50 fighter. He's, 2-3 in his last 5, but again, fighting top of the heat competition. And the big thing to me, Edson Barboza, we're seeing a resurgence of him because he also had an amazing fight against Markwani when he grew back the hair and he got back to his roots, man. But Edson Barboza is that classic Brazilian fighter we love to see. We love to talk about that. We like seeing, man. So it's weird for me saying that Burgos stood out a little more and like, who's going to be back and forth, because Barboza is one of the all-time great strikers. Who stood out to you and why, there?
Well, I have to agree with you. It is Shane Burgos, just because he's like that newer generation of fighter, right? Edson Barboza is a name. He's been around forever, right? Now we got 13-2 Shane Burgos, who is talk about weaponizing pace. This man weaponizes it, man. And he talks about it too. He's like, dude, I'm going to keep walking forward. There's only one way you could really slow this man down, and that's by blitzing him. That's the only way, because take him to the ground, he's going to get back up, and he's going to walk you back down. And we saw that against Marwan Amirkhani, which was very impressive, because if you know about Marwan Amirkhani, you know the man is a pace machine. Marwan Amirkhani is looking to grapple, looking to take you down, looking to tire you out. I will have to say, in that fight against Shane Burgos, though, Marwan Amirkhani did talk about, and I don't know if this is an excuse or not, AJ, but he did talk about how he had a very botched weight cut, and it was really evident because in the third round of that fight, dude was done. He didn't even want to get up. He's the grappler, and he was tired. And you never see wrestlers get tired, or you do sometimes, but that's not really indicative of what a wrestler is. Nonetheless, AJ, let's start breaking down, how this fight is going to take place. So I have a question for you off the bat, and that question is: who do you think out of these two fighters fights better off of their back foot, and who will be fighting off of their back foot in this matchup?
I would say who's better at fighting off their back foot would be Edson Barboza. He's had a little bit more experience at it. He's gone the full, where he's the guy full pressuring as well as he's the guy having to counter strike. Whereas Shane Burgos, especially in his last fight against Josh Emmett, he was kind of showboaty and a little for my own taste, a little too showboaty for the amount that he was delivering. If he's delivering KO knockouts left and right, just crazy stuff back and forth, and he can be as flashy as like a Michel Pereira, for instance. But he has that same kind of fight style where he's kind of flat, like kind of showboaty, keeps his hands low. He's there to get hit. But if I had to give the advantage and who I think is going to be walking down the whole time, I think it's going to be Shane Burgos. He has that little bit more youthful vigor. He's going to take a little bit more of the machismo stance, kind of walk him down. And I think Edson Barboza is going to be there to counterstrike him. Like I said, Shane Burgos keeps his hands low and he's there to be hit. And I think Edson Barboza, being the veteran he is, can capitalize on that pretty great. What do you think?
Well, I think that this fight is going to be a very ebb and a flow, right? I don't think it's going to be one way this way or one way this way. It'll be like this the entire fight. And folks that are just listening, I'm just going back and forth because I think it truly will be back and forth, back and forth. No one is going to be absolutely dominating the entire time unless it does happen, because it is the fight game and anything can happen in the fight game. Nonetheless, I actually think that Shane Burgos fights a little bit better off of his back foot. And the reason why I say that is because I just think there's a difference. Maybe not better, but he fights differently off of his back foot than Barboza does. So Barboza, when he's looking to counter off of his back foot, he's throwing that shin like a baseball bat into your ribs. You know that he's looking for the big shot, the big liver shot with the hooks. He's looking for big, powerful, set my feet and just smash, right? Now, Shane Burgos is a little bit different. I really view him as a volume striker like a Max Holloway, right? He actually, speaking of that, he has the most significant strikes landed per minute in the featherweight division with 7.3 significant strikes landed per minute. That's the highest. You think Max Holloway has that, but he doesn't. Nonetheless, he's looking to just kind of tap you up as he's going backwards. It's not the most effective. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you, but it's just a little bit different. And that's the beauty of this matchup is we're going to get to see. All right, does the power guy who sits down on all the shots win, or does the dude who's going to touch you up and just accumulative damage win? We always talk about these types of matchups because it's just that's how it works. And we're going to talk about that in the next matchup as well because it's a very similar situation. Nonetheless, AJ, when it comes down to it, Edson Barboza, being that in his pre-fight interviews is talking about, if we're going to the ground, I'm ready to go to the ground. Well, Shane Burgos, he has the second best takedown defense at 145 pounds with the 89% takedown defense. So this dude's legit, man. And if this is going to be a striking contest like we talk about, man, it's going to come down to who has the better chin. I really believe that, man. Burgos has pop on his shots too, man. He has 5 knockouts, 5 submissions, 3 decisions. Barboza, 12 knockouts, 1 submission, 8 decisions. So if someone does land the big shot, we know Barboza is going to beat up the body, right? We know he's a body hunter. Actually, in his fight against, I believe it was his last fight, Edson Barboza, his percentage counts, it was like 56% to the body, 25 to the head, and like 18% to the legs, man. So that's the key to slowing down a pace machine, though, right? Is you got to beat up that body. So both of these fighters like to beat up the body as well, though. They're just so evenly matched in these ways, man. Who do you give an edge to? Like, who are you liking in this fight so far?
It's hard because they, like you said, man, they really are kind of back and forth, the same kind of style, same kind of, like you said it perfectly with the ebb and flow. I do think that fight's going to go back and forth a lot, and it might take place on the ground. I don't really think it's going to. I think we're going to see a ton of kicks, but it might. But personally, man, I'm going to give a little bit of an edge, and it's going to go contrary to my pick, but I'm going a little bit of edge to Shane Burgos. I think he does have a little bit of that youthful kind of, exuberance, kind of that flow that he has, and just kind of that little bit of momentum going back and forth for him. Whereas Barbosa's kind of had what some would consider being on the tail end of his career. As far as that go, there's a little bit of advantage to that, being a little more experienced. But, Shane Burgos has been doing it for quite a while, so I don't think experience is going to necessarily come into play. I do think the chin is what's going to come into play on this one because both these boys are going to be cracking, Derek.
Okay, so let me ask you this question, though, because this is what I really think it comes down to. We know Edson Barboza, and this is really weird. That's why I was stumbling over my words in the beginning, because when you think of Edson Barboza, you think 155 pounds. You think about classic wars like him against Paul Felder. You think about him against Justin Gaethje, right? Like, you're thinking about these wars, but that's not what we're seeing, because this dude is fighting at 145 pounds. So he went down a weight class, right? And this is what's really interesting, is because he's tied for the most knockout wins in lightweight history. He tied with Melvin Gilliard, and I think it's something crazy. It's probably like 8 or 10 or something like that. But nonetheless, how much is that going to play into a factor? We always talk about all factors considered, right? We have to factor in this. He's moving down, so he naturally will have more power, right? Naturally, unless getting sucked down to 145 diminishes some power. But I don't really see that. But give me your take on that. What do you think?
I mean, that's the key right there, is how much he's gonna have to suck down. Because if he's got his weight under control and he's doing it kind of like how Jose Aldo did when he started cutting down, and I'm pretty sure he even got down to 135 if I'm not mistaken, and he's looking damn good in his last fights. Or it could have the worst effect on you, take the PEDs out of the situation, but have the effect of how a TJ Dillashaw did, where he cut down to 25 and just completely looked sucked out, couldn't handle a crack to the chin at all. I think it really does come down to prep. So we're gonna have to see the answer to your question, Derek, lies in the weigh-ins. We're gonna be able to see, and unfortunately, we're filming this before the weigh-ins are I think they're gonna happen very, very soon. So we'll have to see it then, man. If he's looking sucked down and has a hard weight cut, then I think it's gonna play into a factor, and that's in Barboza. But if he doesn't, if he's looking strong, it's gonna be a benefit because it was proven in a couple weeks ago, Israel Adesanya versus Blachowicz. Yeah, where Izzy, going up. The bigger man was able to withstand the cracks, and Izzy was getting hurt with the Blachowicz shots. Same kind of issue here with Barboza to Burgos. Will Barboza be able to have that bigger weight? What is he actually walking in at, fighting at? It's going to be interesting. So that is a very big X factor that we're going to have to see play out.
I absolutely agree. And we can just say that Edson Barboza looked absolutely fine in his last fight against Makwan Amirkhani, right? That was 145 pounds. He looked fine. He looks rejuvenated. He's on a new contract at the UFC, man. So it's going to be a good one. Lastly, I just want to point out how impressive it is that Shane Burgos, he lands 7 significant strikes per minute at a 50% clip. That's just super impressive to me. That's ridiculous, man. But that's because it's not loading up and really trying to take your head off with every single shot. So that's it, man. So let's give our picks, man. And AJ, real quick, just turn me down just a little bit in the phones. But we got to give our picks here. And folks, I forgot to mention it, and I will mention it for the rest of them. Shane Burgos has actually opened up as a minus 120 favorite with a plus 100 comeback for Edson Barboza. So the odds makers like the young Shane Burgos here, man. Give me your pick, AJ. Who are you going with?
Well, Derek, this one, like you said, it's a back and forth. It's going to be a lot of fun. But personally, I'm going Barbosa by decision, just because, man, I think a lot of stuff can go into playing this factor, and I don't necessarily know if anyone's going to be KO'd. I think it's going to be a lot of kicks, going to be a lot of back and forth, even some wrestling. Maybe we'll see. But I think it's going to be a long grind out session, taking both fighters into deep water with the experienced Barbosa kind of edging him out with a decision win. Who do you got?
Well, I think that this is going to be a back and forth war, like I said. But the one thing that I'm almost positive of is Edson Barboza's power. It translates round 1, 2, and 3. The speed goes a little bit, but the power remains. And if that is the case, I think that the way that he dropped Makwan Amirkhani like twice or 3 times in the third round of their fight is going to be very similar to this one. I got a TKO or a KO round 3 Edson Barboza, man. I think Barboza gets the job done. I think this is a what have you done for me lately type of sport. And, come on, man. He had a 3-fight losing streak, but it was to Dan Ige, Paul Felder, and Justin Gaethje. It's literally like the best of the best. So.